We are here today in New York during Climate Week and the UN General Assembly, coming together with CEOs and executives from all walks of life to hear directly from them on how they can help to create sustainable impact through their businesses. Architects, planners, and designers have an obligation to make a positive impact on the climate with thoughtful design. Every decision they make, from the materials used to how their designs respond to the climate, directly influences the environmental footprint of their projects. One such organization committed to enhancing the human experience and leaving a lasting and positive impact on people's lives is Perkins Eastman. Heather, great to see you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, Nick, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Let's walk.
Yeah, thank you.
Speaking with co-CEO and Executive Director Nick Leahy and Principal and Director of Sustainability Heather Howagee, we'll learn more about how Perkins Eastman embeds sustainability into its culture from day one, fostering a team of architects and staff who integrate sustainable concepts holistically to maximize social, economic, and environmental value in their work and lives. How did you guys get into architecture in the first place?
I've always wanted to be an architect from a very early age. My parents sort of said, from about 5 or 6, you were like, architect, architect.
I'm curious what Perkins Eastman does and how what your thoughts are about a sustainable future for the planet factors into what you do.
So Perkins Eastman Architects is an international design firm. We're about 900 design practitioners in 23 studios around the world. We've worked in over 65 countries in the world, and we focus on designing key aspects of the built environment. So we really are involved in every aspect, from houses to hospitals to hotels, museums, master plans, and much more. And the built environment is incredibly influential on our quality of life. And we believe through our design we can make a difference.
Heather, can you elaborate a little bit more on what he's talking about, especially how, I guess, the goals of the company factor into how what we see out there, what is built?
Yeah, and just to put a little flavor to what Nick has said here, I think I'm a big fan of data, so I'm going to throw some data at you for a second. But we as architects have a tremendous opportunity and responsibility in terms of the impact that we have on people's lives. So on the one side of things, we as humans spend over 90% of our lives indoors, and that physical environment really has a big impact on our daily lives, on our health and well-being, our ability to perform and thrive. The other side of the equation, when we think about the impact that we have on the planet, so over 40% of the annual greenhouse gases that are emitted globally come from buildings. So they come from the energy that's consumed in order to run and operate these buildings. They come from the materials that go into the construction of these buildings. And so 40% of the pie being kind of under our responsibility is a big deal. So when we think about how we impact people and planet, those two things go in tandem for us. And really that's the responsibility that we have as designers.
But what about the core tenets of what sort of drives the company?
So we see design as a sort of mindset. It's an approach. We see it as design as a sort of intrinsically human activity. Everything's design. And we capture that philosophy in our firm by something called Human by Design. We focus not just on how something looks, but how it works, how it feels, the impact on people's lives, the environment. Through that sort of holistic approach, we get to better outcomes.
Elaborate more on this, how you integrate all of this in your philosophy into your projects, and how you strive to make these projects lasting and meaningful and make a difference in the communities that you serve.
It starts at a very small scale. So what's the impact that we have on individuals? I was referencing earlier the impact that the physical environment has on our own individual health and wellness. So it's actually been shown that the physical environment has more impact on our health and well-being over the years than our genetics, our diet, and our exercise all combined. So the impact that physical environment and the space that we're creating can have on someone's long-lasting health and well-being is significant. But that has a ripple effect. So when we scale up to something like a school, and we're thinking about how are we creating quality environments for those students, we need to zoom into strategies that improve their health and well-being so that they can function in that space and they can learn and they can thrive. And yes, we need to also be looking at all these things in tandem. So we like to zoom into design strategies that both reduce our impact on the environment. Things like John Lewis Elementary School, Banneker High School are good examples of this, where projects in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., where we have targeted net zero energy and we're working towards achieving those goals there. So they're high performing projects from an energy and environment perspective, but they also focus on strategies that improve student and teacher health and well-being in those spaces so that ultimately we can get to the goal of quality education.
Right, right. In what ways does Perkins Eastman's work align with and support the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and how do these efforts contribute to creating resilient, sustainable cities and communities, do you think?
Our firm is really aligned with the UN SDGs. What I like about them is they're holistic. So they take a comprehensive approach. They're looking at individual and community health alongside environmental health, and all of these things need to be done in tandem for us to move forward. Also, it's at all scales. So sustainable cities and communities, when we think about what it takes to get there, as Nick was saying, quality education is a core tenet to being able to have a sustainable community and society moving forward. But there's a lot of other factors too. So how, can you commute to your office easily on a daily basis? What's your access to outdoor open space or parks which you can exercise in? Do you have healthy foods available down the street from you? And I think even possibly more importantly, looking at, can you develop long-lasting, meaningful social connections in your community or not? And as designers, when you look at the impact that the built environment has, your community's design and your city's design does influence that.
Whenever we work on a project like a master plan, we master planned recently turning an old airport into a city center, and we used the sustainability goals as the framework by which to explain how we would do that.
Which, you've done this with?
In Guayaquil, Ecuador.
Oh, wow.
So they have an airport that, because of the massive growth of their city, was on the outside, then becomes the center of the city. So they're looking at changing that. But knitting it back into the city, but sort of understanding the built-in environment as the fabric on which we build our communities. That's kind of the way that people have to look at it. And I think design has suffered a little bit from too much of an image. It's not just what it looks like, but it's how it works, how it integrates into a system. So I think those sustainability goals are very, very helpful as a framework to look at the work. And it aligns very closely with our ethos.
What achievements has Perkins Eastman made in becoming an operationally carbon neutral firm? And how do these accomplishments reflect its commitment to sustainable design and long-term environmental goals?
Great question, Allison. I'm going to start by taking you back in time for a second. So a few years ago, we established what we call our sustainability resolution. It's kind of like a manifesto, a guidepost that put out way in the future, here's what we're trying to achieve as a firm around sustainability. And as a part of that, it outlines our beliefs, good design is sustainable design. It outlines our commitments to a variety of stakeholders because we're all in this together, we can't do it alone. And then it outlines our goals. One of those goals was around carbon. When we talk about carbon for us is both our work and our operations. So I'm proud to say that last year, 2023, we did become an operationally carbon neutral firm by offsetting our Scope 1 and 2 emissions, which was a great step for us. But when we look at the impact that Perkins Eastman has, our operations, that what it takes to operate our offices on an annual basis is just a small fraction of our overall impact. So the work that we do, again, the buildings that need energy to run and then need emissions associated with the materials to be constructed in the first place, all of that is really where the impact lies. So when we talk about our way forward from a sustainability perspective and our long-term goals, we're layering on lots of other targets. So we have the Architecture 2030 Challenge. We have an A&D materials pledge that we're committed to address the embodied carbon and other material aspects. And we have to pull all of these things together to reach that goal. The other thing I'll say is sustainability is more than just carbon. So while we're very excited about that one goalpost that we did achieve, there's other factors in those goals. So there's wellness criteria that we're trying to meet. There's resiliency, diversity, equity, inclusion. All of these are part of a holistic approach.
I think it's important as a design firm, because we see it as an obligation, that we ourselves, demonstrate that we're trying to live that way. We've made great strides, but we're sort of on a journey, and I think it's going to take time for everybody to do that.
What are Perkins Eastman's long-term goals and aspirations for the future? How do you envision the firm's impact on sustainable design, broader architecture, engineering and construction in the industry? How do you see all of that evolving over the next decade?
Climate change is daunting and challenging, and we see design as an important part to resolving that. I think we have to act now. I think as a firm, we are culturally aligning ourselves to be designing buildings that are restorative to the environment, improve people's quality of life, are positive additions to the built environment. That's, after all, what Human by Design is really about. I think the whole AEC industry is aligned around that, or should be aligned around that. I'm hopeful that the sort of trend towards a green economy or a circular economy and the political arena starts to move in that direction, but I think privately owned firms, the private sector like ourselves, have to sort of take up the lead in doing that, and I think we can do that. I think we have exceptional tools, and we're learning more and more as we work, so we can deliver better outcomes. The environment is constantly changing and evolving. No matter what you do, you add a new building here, it changes something around it, and we learn. So I think we're positive and optimistic. I always like to quote Greta Thunberg, where she says, you have to aim to do the seemingly impossible. And I think it's something we can do together.
Heather and Nick, thanks so much for your time today.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Perkins Eastman is a company that lives by the mantra, good design is sustainable design. Perkins Eastman says wellness of people and wellness of planet underscores its approach to holistic wellness and is central to its Human by Design. For Perkins Eastman, it's more than just talk. The company is now an operationally carbon neutral firm. And it's not just stopping there. As signatories of the American Institute of Architects 2030 commitment, Perkins Eastman has pledged to design toward carbon neutral by the year 2030. Perkins Eastman believes as architects, planners, and designers, they have tremendous responsibility to make a positive impact on the climate, that the private sector needs to step up and be accountable instead of waiting for government action.